frustrating, huh?
For a game theory episode on Metal Gear, am I right? Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, the only show on the internet that didn't start their Metal Gear Solid episode with a codec joke. You know what else we're not gonna do? Talk about a topic you would expect us to cover from these games. I mean, this franchise has so many potential topics. Private military groups, nanotechnology, governmental conspiracies, cloning, walking tanks, DNA kill devices, naked cartwheels, the validity of escaping capture by hiding under a box. And we are covering none of it. Yet. Though I've always wanted to do the box one. No, today we're looking at a small detail that appears in every one of these games. One that is absolutely iconic to this franchise, but one that always tends to go a bit unnoticed. Snake's smoking habits. Even before Metal Gear solidified, cigarettes were the first item you received in the game. Equip them, and most of the time all they did was deplete your health. A hilarious anti-smoking statement. But in certain circumstances, they could help. Steadying Snake's nerves when he was aiming, detecting laser alarms using the smoke, stuff like that. But one property that caught my attention was the ability to alter time. In the original Metal Gear, way back in 1987, the cigarettes were useless until the final moments of the game. The facility you're in is about to self-destruct and Snake has to escape. Equipping the cigarettes suddenly extends the amount of time you have to get out of there. Time has in essence slowed. It's weird, right? Now jump from the first installment to the last, to a game that isn't even out yet. Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. Even though, according to some trailers, it's been out for 31 years? Marketing departments are weird. Anyway, this game doesn't follow Solid Snake, it follows Big Boss, known as the greatest soldier who ever lived. First introduced in Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, which is one of my all-time favorite games, and the guy who just happens to be the final boss of the first game in the franchise that we just talked about. Got all that? No? Good. Welcome to Metal Gear. This is a Kojima production. Anyway, in this one, Big Boss is now called Venom Snake because, again, Metal Gear must be complicated. During the E3 2014 gameplay demo of Phantom Pain, I witnessed something that got that little mini theorist riding the electric bicycle that powers my brain a peddlin'. It's called the Phantom Cigar, and it looks a little something like this.
Some move set shortly.
Did you see that? Let's do it one more time. Hiya! Welcome to Flavor Country. Slightly racist Middle Eastern music aside, this got me thinking. In MGS-V, smoking once again results in time-bending properties. Here, Venom Snake has an electronic cigar that speeds up the way he perceives time. But we're given even more detail. If you look closely at the item menu, here's exactly what it says. Quote, a cigar blended with a medicinal herb that speeds up the user's perception of time. It also adds that the cigar loses its effects if the user is under stress. For instance, when he's spotted by an enemy. But that's crazy, right? Is there really a medicinal herb that can make time pass like this? Well, theorists, order some munchies and break out your dad's Grateful Dead records because this week's theory is taking us on a far-out journey into the world of illegal drugs, man. Oh, and I should probably mention at this point that all the research I've done is via reading, not first-hand experience. Call me lame or whatever, but I've never smoked, gotten drunk, or gotten high on anything stronger than sugar, or caffeine, I suppose. As someone who values being in control of my body and my decisions, it's a choice I've made with my life, and I'm proud of it. But hey, it's not for everyone, and I get that. So you do you, theorists. No judgment, and I would hope that you would offer the same courtesy to me. That said, let me make it perfectly clear that this episode is in no way meant to encourage drug use. That ends my PSA. Cue the more you know rainbow effect. Perfect. So let's start with a new kid on the block, methamphetamine, who recently starred in Breaking Bad alongside Malcolm in the Middle's dad and Science, bitch. In a 1981 study published in the Journal of Experimental Psychology, methamphetamine was given in tiny doses to rats, who were trained to receive food after correctly guessing the duration of timed signals. The meth was shown to increase the speed of a rat's internal clock by about 10% at small dosages. And if we consider that Snake is constantly dosing himself throughout the day, I'd say it's at least possible possible that the drug could successfully exhibit this time-quickening effect. Unfortunately though, rather than being a medicinal herb, meth is completely artificial, first synthesized by a Japanese chemist named Nagai Nagayoshi. Yoshi, druggy. Oh, and it's also a borderline neurotoxin that causes heightened alertness, euphoria, and increased sex drive in low doses, and psychosis, cerebral hemorrhage, and the breakdown of your skeletal muscles in high doses. I guess Venom Snake would benefit from the increased focus, and probably wouldn't be opposed to a little, tactical espionage action, if you know what I mean. But those benefits are far outweighed by the consequences. Quite frankly, at the frequency Snake would be using this in the game, he would overdose and die. So yeah, I think it's safe to say we can knock this guy off the list. What about cocaine? Doesn't it have some medical applications? Actually, yes. Cocaine can legitimately be described as medicinal because it's sometimes used as an anesthetic for nasal surgery and as a part of a diagnostic test for Parkinson's disease. But more importantly, it comes from a plant. And yes, it is the same plant that they use in Coca-Cola, but the soda itself hasn't contained traces of cocaine since 1929. So get over it, internet. That said, it's still as addictive as ever. Smooth. So, knowing that, let's jump back to Snake. First of all, if he were smoking cocaine, it would have to be its freebase crack cocaine form, because that's the only way to inhale it without heat burning off much of the active chemicals. Crack cocaine. Sound familiar? It should, because crack was the extremely popular illegal street drug associated with the 1980s drug culture of LA, New York, and Miami. You know all those weird drug-related arcade games that JonTron talked about? Crack had a little something to do with those guys. But the question is, would smoking rocks give us our time travel effect? According to Ruth Ogden and Catherine Montgomery of Liverpool John Moores University, quote, "When taking cocaine, time always goes very quickly. It seems you start taking the drug and then all of a sudden several hours have passed and it's already 7 a.m. So yeah, everything seems to line up with Venom Snake being a crackhead except for one thing. Crack cocaine highs only last between 5 and 10 minutes. So imagine you're Snake. After your first puff of the cocaine Phantom Cigar, your brain would be hit with a rush of dopamine. But then 10 minutes later, the dopamine levels plummet, your high is gone, and you need more. But because your brain takes a while to replenish dopamine, the more hits you take, the less powerful the highs get. Snake would need to constantly be smoking to achieve the effect that we see in the game, and that comes with some serious consequences. He would develop insomnia, become paranoid, and before you know it, he'd have gone on a 3-day crack binge. Not a great mindset for a stealth action super spy. Repeated use, as he does throughout the game, would also lead to full-blown psychosis, potentially crack lung, where your lungs constrict and prevent oxygen and blood from properly circulating, or even delusional parasitosis, where Snake would begin to believe that he's got cocaine bugs crawling under his skin, sometimes to the point where he actually would see them and feel them and start to scratch at them, and it's nasty. Ooh, drugs, man. Drugs can really mess you up sometimes. Okay, so hallucinatory bugs aside, maybe cocaine's not right either. In fact, maybe Snake doesn't need an upper at all. Maybe instead he needs something to mellow him out so that he doesn't notice time passing around him, taking him downriver into a never-ending ocean of calm. Far out, man. Enter opium. Opium is often used to chemically create other opioids like morphine for use as medicine. So yes, it's medicinal. It's also made from poppies, so it passes the plant test. And it works.
Poppies will put them to sleep.
I'm so sleepy.
Oh, you can't rest now. We're nearly there.
Yeah, kind of like that. According to, according to the guy whose name you see on screen right now, in his 19th century book, Le Livre de l'Opium, opium causes the smoker to, quote, escape not only his own body, but also the physical world in which his body exists. Opium plays a siren's tune on the piano of his nerves, and as he listens, the smoker forgets the passage of time, and he also forgets about hunger, thirst, fatigue, and sleep, end quote. So it seems like time passes more quickly, but the way Detuk puts it, it also seems like the experience might be closer to blacking out or entering a weird trance. It dulls your senses, and sometimes can even leave you on the edge of a coma, which doesn't quite coincide with the description of Snake being able to snap back into alertness if spotted. So if meth isn't it, and cocaine isn't it, and opium isn't it, then what's in the cigar? If only there was some other smokable herb that... marijuana! Oh Yeah, ganja, reefer, grass, marijuana. I know, I get it. It seems too easy. Call Snake a pothead, put a big old weed leaf on the thumbnail, do a bunch of Snoop Dogg and Willie Nelson references, and call it a day. But it's not as simple as that, because despite its perfect role as a plant, and as every strip mall in LA is wont to remind me, its medicinal herb usage, unlike the other drugs on this list, the time-quickening effect of marijuana is dependent on the user. Take a look at this other quote from the Ogden-Montgomery study. Cannabis appeared to have different effects on people's perception of time, depending on the circumstances in which it was consumed. When consumed alone, cannabis was associated with a slowing of the passage of time, which means that if Venom Snake was pulling a That 70s show with his Diamond Dog buddies, and yes, his unit's name is actually just a David Bowie reference this time around, look it up, then yes, time probably would move quicker. But according to this study, the way we see him using the drug in-game would produce the opposite results of what we see. So is there any way for Venom Snake to get around this? Why yes. Venom Snake would have had to fully upgrade his pot smoker skill tree in order to do it. Like seriously, we're talking Big Lebowski, Cheech and Chong status here. Let me explain. In 1963, a sociologist named H.S. Becker released a report explaining that most of marijuana's effects are actually learned rather than being a direct result of the drug. What that means is that only stoners who fully understand the drug's effects are able to wield them properly. So going back to the skill tree metaphor, it's like having a weapon but not enough experience to use it. Then in the 1972 book, Altered States of Consciousness, edited by Charles T. Tart, it explains, and I quote, "What happens in these cases is that most of the person's attention is in non-time processes, so that time passage is not noted until the social consciousness returns. Then it seems that no time has passed, since there was no process noting its passage." You don't have to be high to understand that one. It means that by tuning your brain to focus on certain things, the time travel effect just sorta happens. In addition to the classic marijuana mellowing, there's also many hallucinogenic and psychoactive effects, which include introspection and the increased ability to focus on the intricacies of humor, music, and other stimuli. You know the stereotype of the giggling stoner? This is where it comes from. They're just deeply focused around these small details. Now let's watch Snake smoke the Phantom Cigar again. Notice that music, the serenity on his face as he smokes, the super detailed psycho watch face. To pass the time, Venom Snake's just a big-time stoner who's killing a few hours by doing the equivalent of lighting up a doobie, taking in the outdoors, and getting really into his neat new watch. Snake is a pothead, man. Stick some iron butterfly on the turntable and order some White Castle. But it also makes sense from a characterization standpoint. Snake's in the early 80s, knee-deep in the Cold War, fully embroiled in an awful globe-spanning age of terrorism, black ops, and paranoia. The fact that he smokes weed in the face of it all doesn't just make sense from a gameplay perspective, it makes real sense to him as a person, that he'd be down to 420 blaze it every day to calm his nerves. So with that mystery solved, now I gotta wonder what drug Psycho Mantis was on. Now that guy was weird. But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching. Shaving. Whether you're a guy or girl, you gotta do it. Well, I suppose if you're a girl, you don't have to do it. You could always join the Hairy Legs Club Tumblr account. Nothing wrong with that. But hey, some girls like smooth legs. Some guys like smooth legs too. No judgment, no judgment. Like I said, you do you, internet. You do you. But what sucks is that shaving is really darn expensive. $20 for a pack of razors? Forget that. How about $3 and it gets delivered straight to your door without me having to worry about it? That is the benefit of Dollar Shave Club. They send the handle for free, and then every month I get a new pack with plans starting at $3. Not happy? Boom! Refund. Want fewer blades? Boom! Get them every other month. Click the link in the description or type into the URL bar dollarshaveclub.com/MattPat to check them out. And you know what else? It helps the show. You supporting these ads has helped us increase the number of theories we get to turn out. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's been a lot more game theory happening on the channel lately, and that's thanks to you, and thanks to sponsors like Dollar Shave Club, and thanks to you supporting said sponsors. So keep on shaving and keep on theorizing. Click the link, dollarshaveclub.com/MattPat, and say hello to baby smooth skin.